The policy has finally come out, right? Till that point of time, it was always people were in doubt. What can you do? What can you not do? At the same time, anytime you went to DIBA, they always came with the standard saying, "Hey, listen, you are not allowed to sell electricity. Only we are." Right? So now the policy says, well, okay, we will allow certain people to do that on behalf of us. Right? So that's a big change. At the same time, to be very honest with you, it's a very well laid down policy, right? All the do's and the don'ts are very well defined, right? What can you do? What's the application process? How do you benefit from this? What's to an extent they've even unified the charging rate, and they said anywhere you go, this is what you're going to pay.
It is 1.2.
1.2 dirhams per kilowatt hour for the DC chargers and zero point 0.7 fills for the AC chargers, right? And the really great thing about this entire policy is it's not just for Dubai, it's across the UAE, right? So anywhere you go, the idea is this is what you're going to pay. The challenge here is the cost of infrastructure is extremely large, right? So your first challenge is right when you go to any building, do you have additional load, right? And what happens is a lot of these buildings don't have that additional load, in which case you have to apply for it. And that is a very expensive process considering what's your total connected load, right? So that's your first challenge. Then it depends upon the civil and electrical work associated with the charger. The charger in itself may not be so very expensive, but what happens is as you move upstream, then you've got the cost of all the associated ones, the civil, electrical, the additional load, which as a total investment, if you look at it, some projects the ROI is good. For some, it doesn't really work out at that particular price point. But then what happens is now the entire market is moved towards. I think they're taking the cue from what solar and energy efficiency does, right? Basically, is that I give you a location, please come in, by all means put your charger. You set up the entire infrastructure, you collect the fees from the end user, and you give me a revenue share. So that's the business model that's kind of being pushed all across. And not just from the private perspective, but the public is also doing it. The governments are also doing it. DIBA was also encouraging that. A lot are needed. And this continues to be a challenge, right? Because the waiting times are a lot higher for charging your vehicle, right, compared to your fueling of your tank. The second problem is that when you're trying to build this infrastructure, you really don't know where your customer base is, right? And more importantly, the challenge that you have in your residences, maybe it's a villa, it's a different story. You may have some sort of a spare load, but in buildings, one, you don't have spare load. Two, you don't have a free parking, right? So then the building landlord can't give you an EV charger facility, right? So then where do you go to charge, right? And that's a huge problem that we're trying to address.